into First Take, and it is officially official. The Jets are moving on from Aaron Rodgers. Their new head coach, Aaron Glenn, and new GM releasing the following statement, quote, last week, we met with Aaron and shared that our intention was to move in a different direction at quarterback. It was important to have this discussion now to provide clarity and enable each of us the proper time to plan for our respective futures. We want to thank him for the leadership, passion, and dedication that he brought to the organization and wish him success moving forward. Stephen A., not necessarily surprising, but your reaction, Jets moving on.
Well, for me personally, I think it's the right move because you have a new coach and a new GM, and you want to cleanse, per se, the culture, the locker room that existed there. You're Aaron Glenn. Obviously, you're the head coach now. You're an overseer, but nevertheless, defense is what got you the head coaching job to begin with. The Jets had huge expectations coming into last season because you assumed that their defense was going to be elite. And it was really a matter of Aaron Rodgers being the quarterback there as opposed to a Zach Wilson, where you have a Breece Hall, you have a Garrett Wilson. You ultimately ended up getting a Devontae Adams back, that kind of situation.
So Stephen A. Smith hit the nail right on the head. The Jets had to get rid of Aaron Rodgers, even though the conundrum and the catch-22 of this is that Aaron Rodgers was the best quarterback for the position. If you look at the free agent market, you got Sam Darnold, Kirk Cousins, and some other old dudes. If you're going to go old dude, Aaron Rodgers is the guy, but the Jets weren't willing to have the baggage of the Pat McAfee show, the baggage of the tinfoil hat shit that Aaron Rodgers loves to do, and make it all about himself. Especially football is the most selfless game that you can play, 53 guys working towards one goal. And Aaron Rodgers always seemed like it was 52 guys going for one goal and him. So he was never really part of the team. So I think this is addition by subtraction.
And it ended up being a disaster. He finished 5-12, even though he passed for 28 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, and nearly threw for 4,000 yards, which is not anything to sneeze at. The reality is that he didn't live up to expectations, and him being an experienced individual who's one of the elite quarterbacks that the game of football has ever seen, it's pretty hard to be completely new at the GM and the head coaching spot and come back with the same old, same old.
See, that's hard to say Aaron Rodgers didn't succeed. He had the third best statistical season of any Jets quarterback ever. Joe Namath, Fitzpatrick, and then you got Aaron Rodgers, okay? Aaron Rodgers, worst head coach, worst offensive coordinator in the league, worst owner in the league possibly. And he still went 28 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. So you couldn't ask for a better season under the circumstances.
Particularly when that same old wasn't what he used to be. At least he didn't resemble that last year. Too much friction, too much acrimony, too many other things. May not have been the fault of Aaron Rodgers at all, but nevertheless, you want to start anew. And a fresh start is not something that I have a problem with when it comes to the New York Jets, because it's not an accident that they play near the swamp in East Rutherford, New Jersey.
So if Aaron Glenn were to keep Aaron Rodgers, too many Aarons in New York, by the way, were to keep him on the team, and then Aaron doesn't show up to OTAs because he has to go do ayahuasca in Egypt, that would undermine Aaron Glenn immediately, and he'd be thrown into the same category as Robert Saleh, where players throw paper airplanes at his back while he's writing the plays on the board. Okay, Aaron Glenn needed to get Aaron Rodgers out of there, even though he's a vet, and Aaron would say all the right things to get back on the team and make this the Aaron Rodgers show. Aaron Glenn is the head coach. He is the leader. That's it. Full stop. And I love that about the Jets. No more placating, no more bullshit. Jumping through hoops to appease Aaron Rodgers' ego is not what the Jets are for. We just went through the last 2 years of that, and I was in the building when he snapped his Achilles against the Buffalo Bills on that Monday night. So I know the pain that the Jets have gone through being a diehard Jet fan.
Because they stink just as much as that swamp does, and they have stunk for many, many years. So it makes perfect sense.
So Stephen A., this is all about the culture, right? And redefining what that culture is going to look like in that locker room moving forward with Aaron Glenn, who just happens to be a guy that the New York Jets drafted in the first round some years ago. Aaron Glenn also had an opportunity to work in the front office when it came to the New York Jets organization. He's someone that has the cachet. He played 15 years in the league. He is a player's coach. He's someone that a lot of guys feel like you can go to about any and everything and keep it real. So this is about having one voice in that locker room, and that voice being the head coach in Aaron Glenn, who now has his first head coaching opportunity. When you look at the New York Jets organization, Stephen A., like you just mentioned, when you
See, Robert Saleh always seemed like that out-of-touch dude from the HR department when he coached the Jets. Aaron Glenn's been there. He's walked through the shoes of a player, and if you notice that major sports, NBA, MLB, football, is going through this renaissance of getting former players to be head coaches because you had the owners having neutral head coaches placating to diva players. Now you have players, so when they actually speak, other players listen, because when you have a guy like Robert Saleh who never played professional football is telling you to do X, Y, and Z, and you're like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. It's actually like if you've ever had a construction job and you're one of the guys swinging a hammer and the general contractor comes down and goes, we got to do this. And you're like, you know how long that's going to take? That's going to take 3 days. You've never swung a hammer, so you don't know. Aaron Glenn has done it before, has been under Bill Parcells, has worked under great Sean Payton coaching trees.
brought in Aaron Rodgers, you thought you had an opportunity to contend, number one, in the AFC East. But also, if you got into a playoff setting going against some of these top dog young quarterbacks, that Aaron Rodgers could pull you ahead and get you to where you need to be. That hasn't been the case the last 2 years. He tore his Achilles in year one, and it was an utterly disappointment in year two from a record standpoint. Now, I would also say this, because I can't get up here and not mention having Quincy Williams on ESPN radio down at the Super Bowl, and also Jermaine Johnson II. Both of those guys had nothing but great things to say about Aaron Rodgers as a teammate. And I think that's also one thing that we also have to give Aaron Rodgers credit for, is that his former teammates didn't say bad things about him, and they came to his defense in a lot of categories. The production wasn't on the football field, but I firmly believe when it comes to the New York Jets, they're resetting everything when it comes to their organization, and they want to move forward along with the owner, Woody Johnson, with one voice in that locker room.
Yeah, this is all great news for the Jets until Woody Johnson starts acting like Woody Johnson. You know, it's he says all the right things during the press conference, and then he's like, well, all final decisions come through me. He said that after the Aaron Glenn press conference. So I want to see it. I keep hearing from Woody Johnson that he's going to change. He's not going to be a weirdo. But guess what? I'll believe it when I see it. When you stop asking your son for Madden ratings on guys who you should go after.
And everything trickling down, and that's from head coach Aaron Glenn.
I'm with you. I think there's a public perception. I think there's a perception of Aaron Rodgers behind the scenes as well. You could say he's enigmatic. He said so himself. I get all that. You know, teammates talk lovingly of him and things like that. This isn't surprising because their season's been over for months. So we've been asking this question for months. Should they move on? I firmly was on the team of move on from Aaron Rodgers. I actually think the stats don't indicate how bad it was. I mean, the 28 touchdowns, you sort of go, okay. If you watch their games, it wasn't great. But the bigger question to me.
You know what? She brings up a great point. I am a big advocate of the 28-10, but it didn't really look like it. It almost looked like the score of the Super Bowl last weekend, on how the end score of that game, 40-22, did not indicate the dominance that the Eagles portrayed over the Chiefs. You see what I'm saying? And by the way, you can see the dominance of New York Minute here on YouTube. That's NEWYRKMIN, also on Instagram, where you can check out our memes, hot takes, and everything. And we're going to be covering Jets, New York Rangers, Yankees, Giants, anything New York. Remember, it's New York sports for New York nuts, folks. See you soon.